I think this might be everybody that's come in. Jenny just sent something saying that she didn't think she could meet today, and Jody said that she could not either.
Okay. Okay. So hopefully everybody is safe and warm. Happy New Year, everybody. The agenda from, let's see, we did not meet in December, but from November, or approval of this agenda. Sorry, it's going to take me a minute to get my brain engaged. Is everybody okay with the agenda that was sent? Okay. The meeting notes from November, did everybody have a chance to take a look at those? And we're good with them? No corrections, additions? Okay. Evidence-based practices, training, follow-up discussion. So we were in a bit of a different place in November when we spoke about this. And so I know we still obviously plan to form a work group. It's just been put on the back burner just a little bit. And I need to get with kind of the rest of the team and see how we're going to go about that. But I know, Alice, was it you who wanted to be part of it? Like, you're going to have to refresh my memory a little bit as to who was interested in being part of that from this committee.
Just make sure I'm clear on the particular committee you're asking about. Was this particularly around serving kids who traditionally fall within our CHINS thing? Then
yes,
yeah, the county, we would like to have representation on it, and I could do it, or I might identify one of my staff.
Okay, so when we get ready to set that up, hopefully this month, probably later this month, and trying to start forming that, I will reach out to you. And of course, Alan, I know we want someone from Region 10 and someone from City DSS and someone from the schools. So Ashley, is that something you would be interested in doing? Or I know Jody had wanted to be part of that as well. But I know we want to have some county representation also.
I mean, I don't mind being a part of it, no.
Okay. So I will make note of all of that and kind of reach back out to everyone.
Krista, yeah, you could add just me to that, as Region 10 representation. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea if particularly if people from programs are on that committee as well. So I'll do that. Thank you. Do we want to talk about anything else about our evidence-based practices or any more follow-up discussion on that? Going once, twice, okay. Any updates, FAPT, Erica, any county updates?
Nope. I feel like we haven't had a lot of FAPT since we last met over the holidays and such, but I think things are just moving along.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of my thought too. Katie, do you know anything about City FAPT? Any updates?
Not in particular. We also haven't met in quite some time. No surprise, we're not necessarily inundated with services. I mean, with cases this week or next week either. So I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe it's just because people are without power and internet still.
Yeah.
But we're also, Jennifer and I have been talking a lot about how to do the electronic approvals. We're trying to keep that process as similar as possible between the city and county as we can. So we're trying to learn from each other. It's way more complicated than either of us thought it was going to originally be. So we are working on that as well. Just preparing, for the thought of continuing to meet virtually. So that's kind of where we are.
Are you guys meeting this week? Okay. I think I will be covering this week.
Okay.
I think Martha is going to try to cover most of the time, and then when she's not able to, I'll cover.
Okay.
She's technically off this week.
Okay.
So I think I'll be doing Friday.
Okay. I'll make sure you're on so I'm sending the stuff out. I'll make sure that you're on that list.
And I usually get all of the stuff anyway.
Oh, okay. I'll just double check.
Okay. CSA coordinators, Jennifer and Katie.
Is this where we want to talk about the survey, or do we want to do that under family engagement?
We usually do it under family engagement. I guess it doesn't
Okay.
matter. So I just had a couple of things I was going to bring up that I think has happened more on the county side of things. Not to say that it won't happen at some point with the city. So a couple of issues just to sort of make you guys aware of. I found out last month that DCSE no longer has a Charlottesville office, which I did not realize. And so our whole process that was originally set up way back when Cheryl and Katie had met with the DCSE lady for Charlottesville, and they had this whole system in place of how we were going to manage the CSA parental placements and those DCSE referrals. All of that's gone now. And so we no longer have any of that in place. And so what happened last month is we discovered that anytime there's a parental placement, it's all going through the Richmond clearinghouse, and then it gets farmed out to different workers. So the workers that we used to work with no longer serve Charlottesville or Albemarle. So we don't have them anymore. We don't know who, it wouldn't be one person assigned to these cases. And then the other thing we found out is it's changed, and it's all now called state and local. So every foster care case, every parental placement where parents still have custody, they all go into the same bucket. And so last month we had a parent who was basically having to show that they had custody of their kid, which was a huge problem because DCSE was trying to say they were in foster care, which was not accurate. So there's sort of a question around how we want to continue with the DCSE referrals. Is it worth kind of the manpower that's going to be involved? So everything has changed about how we do it. So there's just sort of a lot of things that are going to have to change in how we're doing those referrals. And then my guess is our local policy might have to be revised because of that. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that, mostly because I think it's worth asking if we get enough back end revenues that it's worth pursuing DCSE the way we've done in the past. So that I don't know. It may be worth getting more information about to see like what the revenues that were generated from that. The other thing to keep in mind is like short-term placements. We don't make DCSE referrals on those. I'm trying to think of other reasons we wouldn't.
Yeah, and when the state said you have to have some sort of way to collect copays from parents, we locally decided we didn't want to do that for any home-based services, and that the reason why we only have been doing them for residential was because those were the most costly services for the localities. And the reason why we went with DCSE is to have the same process as kids who are in DJJ custody or in DSS custody. But now the state, we were able to work with our local office, or, they knew if they got this from Cheryl or from me, it was a CSA case, it was a different case, there was a different process. Now we don't kind of have that control over how those cases are handled. And it sounds like they're all just being handled as if they're in the custody of the state in some form or fashion. And, you know, it wasn't an issue for a while, I think, because we didn't really have any cases that were being referred until more recently. And I've certainly held off on referring the couple of cases that we have because until we kind of figure this out, because, you know, it sounds like it's kind of a mess. So I think our next steps are to go to CPMT and let them know what's going on, and to kind of get some direction from them about how they want to proceed. And we might come back to you guys if they kick it back to program for input and recommendations, which is why Jennifer wanted to kind of bring it up today. So heads up.
I know DJJ did away with that process as of July
really?
1st, this yeah, 21.
That's good
So,
to know.
yeah, we're no longer doing that. And so I wonder how
you guys doing
beneficial it
anything?
is. No, not anything from the parents.
Okay, well, that's good to know, because maybe, and again, that was part of the reason why we wanted to make it as consistent as possible, for kids who are placed out of the home. And so that's good information. And again, you know, when you look at the majority, so we don't do it on A&D placements, which are a good chunk of placements. And then on residential placements, we're really only paying for education usually out of CSA. It's usually Medicaid's paying for the rest. So, you know, when we're looking at how much money we're recouping from parents, you know, to go against that, it's usually not really worth it, I feel like, and that's just my opinion. But, and then, you know, we have parents, of course, that, you know, their income is such that they can't pay or don't have to pay, or they're on benefits and don't have to, like, then they don't, you know, get referred. And so I think it is a question of, you know, whether or not it's really worth our resources, or not. But I think at the time too, we didn't really want to do it, but the state was saying you have to do something. And I mean, that was probably over 10 years ago. So I think it's worth revisiting.
Yeah.
The other thing, I just have a couple other things, sorry. Another thing that came up for us was we had a provider. So the CSA provider agreements, there's an exemption for certain types of services. And so one of them is like drug testing or scram services. That's all exempt from the provider agreement. So we recently had a provider that increased their rates for the service. And because they don't sign a CSA contract, there's no agreement with them about like that you have to maintain your rates through a fiscal year. So there was really no way of telling them that they couldn't do that. But then the issue becomes your FAPT authorization is for a certain amount, and now you're over that. So I think it's a question, but like in these particular cases, it may be worth having some form of something that provides guidance to the providers about when they can increase rates, and just some general guidance for them, I think would be helpful. Just to avoid this kind of situation. The other thing, so this last, when we did the FY22 provider agreements, we had, or at least I had on my side, a lot of, it was primarily outpatient therapists, but a lot of them were saying that they could not take the case conferencing rate anymore, that it is too low. And so, you know, I will say, that rate was in effect. I mean, I don't know how long it's been in place now. It's been a long time. It's always been the same amount, but it also fell in line with what the intensive in-home rate, which is $60 an hour. And so that's where that sort of came to be. But what I'm finding now is I've had a lot of outpatient therapists say that that if it stays at that rate, that they likely won't provide that service next year. Because what I had told them is that it's something I'm obviously going to bring up to CPMT because it's set by local policy, that amount. So the two things to be aware of is, one, outpatient therapists are saying that's not a high enough rate for them. And then the other piece is, if we do increase the rate, that this rate was set as a community-based rate. So you have mentors who this would apply to as well. And so I don't know if it would mean that there would be two different rates if you're a licensed therapist versus a mentor, that sort of thing. So it's pieces to be aware of. But the main thing would be that because this is the time where we start looking at the FY23 provider agreements, that if something like that were to go into effect, we'd need to start working on it now versus waiting until later in the year. So I just wanted to throw that out. I don't know if you all have any thoughts about any of that.
I have a clarification. So I had always thought that the mentoring, if we were asking a mentor to be at a meeting, the hours that were already scheduled for a mentor could provide for them to participate, and the same for in-home services.
Yeah,
that it would be. Go ahead.
We've always said they can't charge more than 60. So if their mentoring rate is 55, sometimes they'll bundle it all together and sometimes they'll separate it out. Now, if their mentoring rate is 65, we have to separate it out because we can only pay 60 for case conferencing. So it might depend, you might see it differently based on what they charge.
Okay.
And maybe, if we can, talk about that more, and if we want it to always be separated out, like if that's makes it clearer. But I know we've done it both ways in the past.
Well, regarding the therapist not being able to participate if the rate doesn't go up, I just want to say I would, as CPMT's decision, but I certainly fully support raising the rate, because I do think their participation in our treatment team meetings is of great importance. And if we will not, children and families will not be as well served if they find themselves unable to participate. So I would support that.
Yeah, I would support that too. I think it's incredibly valuable to be able to have, therapists to be able to be there. Traditionally, I think I've always sort of, I don't think I've ever requested CSA or the case conferencing for in-home or mentoring folks, but just because it seemed, the way that hours and services get billed out. But, again, maybe it's helpful to sort of designate or separate that clarification.
It might also depend on the provider
This is true.
and how they do their billing too.
Yeah.
And originally when we messaged out to providers and did the whole case conferencing thing, it was only for outpatient therapists. And then, at some point providers were like, well, that's not fair, that's not consistent, so we decided to open it up to all the community-based providers. But maybe it's a good time to look at it so that when we send out our contracts in the spring, we can be very clear about what the expectation is around case conferencing.
Yeah, I would support that discussion as well.
It's good to know. We can take that to CPMT as well, so that we talked about it here and program members were in support.
So once we take it to CPMT, and if they're in agreement with it, will programs need to do anything regarding that? They talk about setting a rate, or would it be just kind of what the providers?
Last time there was like a work group that got together to kind of come up with the rate and the definition and who that would apply to. Now, the definition, I don't see that changing. But perhaps CPMT would kick it back to program to talk about what the rate may be.
Okay.
Or to recommend a higher rate, and what makes sense. And maybe we need to look at, what we're paying for outpatient therapy or other services these days. Because it was based off of the old Medicaid reimbursement rate that we used to kind of stick to, which we've also gotten away from now that we don't do as much intensive at home.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of what else. Sorry. The other thing, CPMT, part of our work plan is to start working on developing an orientation for new members. And so we just wanted to bring that here to you guys to see if you all might be wanting something like that for a program, if you think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think they asked us to come up with like an onboarding packet, I guess, if you will. And, you know, since we're all kind of doing things virtually these days, you know, it's hard to necessarily meet with people and go over things, but they asked us to put things together, like a list of trainings and what, like the OCS has training modules, and they asked us to put together an acronym list. And so as we're getting new people on program or FAPT, I do think those resources would be helpful to share as well.
Yeah, I'm smiling because I was thinking back to a year ago when I started joining this group, and it's like, yeah, that would have been helpful.
Yeah. We've had a lot of new CPMT members, so that's where it kind of came from. But we are working on that as well. We'll share that with you guys.
Yeah. And if you have any ideas of like things that would have been helpful now that you've like been on here for a while, like that's great information to share as well.
Yeah, I think Ashley, I'm picking on you a little bit because I know you're here, because you and I just had this conversation a couple of weeks ago about onboarding and just some of those things that would have been helpful. I think Ashley is the only one who's onboarded to FAPT completely virtual. Everybody else at least had some experience in person. So we talked a little bit about how we dropped the ball in some places and just giving information and sharing that and having it easily accessible. So I think that's good at all levels, CPMT programs, FAPT, all the way down.
Well, and with Kamisha too, she and I had spoken, and I kind of shared with her what was shared with me at the beginning, which was basically just the program charge from the CSA manual. And you know, Kamisha, you can jump in if you want, not trying to call you out or anything, but yeah, I think even for me, I know I've been on programs for a couple of years, but even taking over the chair position, I still wasn't exactly sure, you know, exactly what I need to be doing or anything. So I think that would just be really helpful. Okay, anything else, Katie or Jennifer, for CSA coordinators?
I don't think so. I think the other stuff we'll talk about later on.
Okay.
I want to sort of on Jennifer's behalf note that Cheryl Lewis, our longtime coordinator, is now officially retired, and Jennifer Wells is now running the show. So we thank Jennifer for that, and we thank Cheryl for her years of faithful and excellent service.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that leads into partner agency updates. Any updates from anyone?
Just power's out everywhere. We're just trying to get work done, notwithstanding. It's been a challenge.
Yeah. Well, we've been closed all week so far, and we're actually going to start, at least for a little while COVID is up, going back on a telework rotation. The staff is. And we still don't have a new PO. We've had 3 rejections. And yeah, I think that's about it. Any other partner agency updates or anything on service provision during COVID? Anything different now that it seems to be ramping back up a little or a lot?
I will add, Region 10 was obviously closed for the last 2 days as well and had a late start this morning. I don't know that I haven't heard of any policy changes at this point due to the COVID ramp up, but you know, may be coming, I don't know. I don't think there are any additional pieces that are floating around. There are some new trainings that are available, but I feel like maybe I should hold that for the trauma-informed piece. I've lost track of where we are in the things, but
okay. Well, and I will say, speaking of training, also we are having a family engagement training that is being hosted by Annie Casey Foundation, and they're contracting with Justice for Families to do that training. And it's 6 weeks for 3 hours. It's on Tuesday afternoons from 1 to 4 virtually. I believe all of you should have received invites. Sorry, County, for kind of bringing you in at the last minute, but we have slots. And so I wanted to get some of you guys in there. Katie, I've tried to send it to as many people at City DSS as I could think of. But if there's anyone that you feel you want to pass it on to, feel free to do so. We do have slots available, and would like as many people to attend as possible. I think we have a 75 person cutoff, and we're not near that yet. Anything else on partner agency updates or service provision?
Hello, everyone. I have a few updates. KIP start date has been pushed back. We're doing another virtual academy with hopes to start in the summer with the in-person piece of KIP. So if you have kiddos that you'd like to refer for our virtual academy, please send them over to Annie Seacrest. We are taking applications now. We are trying a hybrid process right now with small group in-person Teens Give. Our goal is to follow the school. So as long as school is in person, we will have small group sessions for Teens Give and some of our groups that we offer, Boys Council, diversion, things of that nature. We'll do small group in person right now. If school goes virtual, we will go back all virtual. And we are open for all referrals. So if you have them, send them to us.
Kamisha, I have a question. Is there any discussion about doing KIP as a sort of a hybrid in-person and virtual program?
Yes, so we are currently working on that model now because we have kids who've done the virtual academy and want to do KIP again, but it's the same material. So what we're requiring right now is that you do the virtual academy in order to do in-person. So they have to complete the virtual 6-week academy and then would be eligible for when we have slots for in-person KIP.
Is there a timeline for having the in-person KIP slots coming up? Is that for this time period?
So we're not going to run it for this session because the numbers are so high and we haven't been able to secure in-person sites yet with the holidays. But that's our goal going into the summer, is that we'll have 2 academies going at one time. So there'll be a virtual one and then an in-person one.
Great, thank you. That's exciting.
Thanks, Kamisha. Anyone else? All right, UR guidance. Where are we on that?
I think part of this was the mentoring cases.
Right.
And we were going to meet last month, and I think Jennifer and I had wanted some clarification. So Ellen, remind us what your capacity was for that.
I think it was 6 cases a month. I think we were looking at doing.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't have my notes right in front of me.
That was total for county and city. So like 3 from each, or was that
Yeah.
6 from each? 3 from each.
No, I think that was 3 from each.
Okay.
And I thought that one of the one of the sort of glitch points was getting, wasn't there a question for CPMT to answer about
The policy.
the policy and sort of the definition of how that was? Yeah.
So they approved the policy so that we
Okay.
can do the UR this way. But then after that, I think Jennifer and I were like, wait a second, how many cases do you have? And how many do I have? And how many can we do? And what's a, good sample size, right? So we were trying to figure that out. And we couldn't remember how many cases you said you guys could do a month. So I think we were trying to figure that out.
Right.
And if it would be like, this month we'll do city and this month we'll do county, or if it was like 3 from each every month, or if it really mattered. So we were just trying to figure that part out, that piece of it. The other piece of it is we need to develop a form that, like, CPMT approved the policy change, but we also need to come up with a form that gets signed off on, basically authorizing the funding. So that's the other piece that we are working on. The technical stuff.
Okay. That's a good update.
So, I mean, you know, for the city, we have 43 cases. I'm guessing the county, if I remember correctly, had about the same number. You know, so like 80 cases, half of that would be, you know, 40. That's going to take over 6 months to do. So do we really want to do that many? Do we need to do half? You know, just trying to think of what's going to give us a good sample. If anybody has any thoughts about that.
I don't. I think one of the things that we had also talked about was sort of how those cases got picked out, of, you know, whether it was, you know, I know wanting to look at sort of a broader range too of,
I think if I remember correctly, we had decided that it would be proportionate to how many we have of each provider. So, you know, if like half of them were community attention, then half of our sample would be community attention. So we did sort it out by provider. But again, it was, you know, how many is Region 10 going to be able to realistically do a month? And then how long do we want this to kind of go on? Really would help determine the sample size. And, you know, I guess what we could do is just do a representative sample and start somewhere and see how it's going. I mean, you know,
that's what I was thinking about, is just if we, again, it wouldn't be a random sample at that point because we're being selective about how we pull these cases, but it would be representative, which I think would be important. So that way you're getting agency mentors, independent mentors, you have an accurate picture of what you're looking at. But I'm almost wondering if it's worth starting it, going ahead with the 6 cases that would work, and then having program look at that and decide, is this answering what we're wanting to know about? And if it is, we can keep moving it forward. Or if it's not, then maybe just revisiting how we're doing it, and maybe if something needs to be changed or that kind of thing. So what do you all think about something like that?
I mean, I think that makes sense, just to get started and it'll give a chance for me to assess, you know, could we do more? Does it take more time than I thought? You know, just, you know, because some of that, you know, doing 6 cases is sort of an estimate, because we've done utilization review, but not necessarily in this capacity or in this way. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right. All right, moving on to our focus areas. We do have the surveys.
Yep. So we didn't get the FAP survey results out to you guys. We'll send those out. It'll probably be next month, but we'll get them to you. I did send out the provider satisfaction survey for the city and the county. And, you know, the things to note about them, response rates are super low. And then I also am sort of thinking that folks may still be feeling a little confused that they're not rating their case manager, they're rating their providers. And so I'm not sure I'm not sure how to clarify for folks that are responding about who they're actually rating on this.
And I wonder if, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, at least just looking at the city, like it's very obvious that they think this is about their social worker. And I'm wondering what the instructions are on the survey. Like maybe we need to put in capital letters like this, this is not talking about your social worker, or this is not talking about your case manager. This is your, the people providing services to you. I don't remember what that intro said. I mean, that doesn't really necessarily fix the response rate issue. But I wonder if there is any kind of clarification we can make in the instructions.
And I don't know if it's maybe the wording for the questions, because people
Right.
obviously are answering what type of service they got, but when they get, I feel like there's something about a disconnect from when they're saying what the services were, and then suddenly it turns into like that it was helpful and all that information, it suddenly shifts to the social worker for some reason. So I don't know if it's worth maybe changing the question.
Yeah, like maybe the questions need to reference question 1. Like
Right.
services and supports that you chose in question 1 were helpful to my family. Yeah, because I do think they're thinking service provider as, social worker.
And I mean,
These are all great and lovely things that they're saying.
yeah, they're really good. And I mean, the only other thing is to encourage our case managers to really clarify that with them. But I think the clarifying language in each question would be helpful also.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is like if it's even like if it's going out,
Right.
it has to go out to the, to the worker, which I do think is happening, but then it has to go out to the family member, and then they have to complete it. So that's kind of a lot of steps that have to happen. So we all know how chaotic everyone's lives are. I mean, I don't know that I would even have time to fill out this survey.
I wonder if it's also worth, bringing up at the FAP table, at the FAP table, just as we talk about the FAP survey.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if, there's some information that, gets provided to them that they're going to receive a survey. I wonder if sort of priming them and the case manager at FAP table, sort of I don't know.
You mean like if the family member's there?
Mm-hmm. Or do you think, I'm wondering if they're getting confused between the two surveys, because we have the family engagement, which does have a lot to do with your caseworker, versus this one that's now provider. And if they think one is the other or the other is that one.
Yeah, I know like for the city, the other one still gets mailed out, so they get an actual piece of paper. But maybe they think it's the same thing.
Would we be able to somehow combine the two? I know it's going to make it a lot longer though. Have one section, this is your caseworker, this is this feedback, and then the next section, this is the provider feedback. That's going to make it a lot longer.
Well, and the paper survey is really about their FAPT experience.
Yeah, the intention was to keep them separate so that people weren't confused. And that's even why I think there were 2 different formats for how we did it. Like the FAP survey was mailed, this one was done differently. And the hope was that the case managers would really be the ones to kind of sell this to the families as a way to get them to respond. But again, I feel like there's a little bit of confusion on the family side as far as who they think they're rating. So I'm just not sure if it's worth, going back to your respective agencies and saying, hey, like, what do you guys think's going on with this? Is there something that you think we should be doing differently? I know there was another locality that had like the FAP survey on the front. And then when they came back on a review, they filled out the front side for FAP, and then the back side of that was for providers. But that was also when they did it in person, which I think made a huge difference. So now that we're in this kind of virtual way of doing things, I'm not sure what the best way would be, to go about doing that. The problem also is the FAP surveys are only going to go out to parents when they participate in the staffing. So then we've got to have a way to get all these when they come back on reviews. And so there's the question about how you know what I'm saying? So there's just a lot of pieces to it. So I don't know if you guys feel like it's worth going back to your teams and just kind of maybe asking them like, well, what do you guys think's going on? Or is it maybe that you just forgotten to send it to them, or do you feel like it's too confusing, or there's too many surveys?
I'm sorry, Jennifer, could you repeat that? I just got one of those texts from one of my staff who's having an issue. So could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Do you guys want to maybe just go back to your teams and ask them if they're getting any kind of feedback? Because that would be helpful to know, like, our family saying, I don't have time for that, or I don't want to do that, or is it maybe that the case managers have forgotten to send it? That happens. And if that's the case, like that, if we need to do reminders differently or something again, it's just figuring out maybe what the issue is. And then why people are feeling confused about like that they should not be rating their social worker, that it should be the providers of the services.
I wish there was a way that we could make the survey, if you flow like this. So question one, like, what services are you receiving right now? And then the family clicks mentoring. And then it automatically populates every question after that. Does your mentor blah, blah, blah? Does your mentor value your, that? I don't know how to do that. It's beyond my skill set, but I wonder if something like that would help, just to intentionally put that word in there, those words in there for folks so that they know who they're looking at. Maybe that's what we can look at for the paper copy for the engagement survey as well. Like maybe there's ways to clarify that this is a different survey than what your case manager is mentioning that you should expect to see.
Those surveys when like you go to a store or restaurant and it says like, did you order French fries, cheeseburgers, chicken nuggets, whatever, and you pick it and it's like, were your, French fries warm and cooked to order or whatever. Like it could be like that, maybe. I don't know if we have that technology or not, but it's something we could go back and ask about maybe. Or is there a way to generate the survey that it's like, if you pick this, it's going to ask you about the questions about that. I mean, it may be that it asks those same questions 5 different times if they're getting 5 different services, which means there's a longer survey. But maybe that would help clarify it, because like we can't even use these results, I feel like, because they're not about what we wanted them to be about. And because they're all jumbled together, I mean, at least on the city one, all 3 people answered the same way. They gave the same rating. So that makes it a little bit clearer. But if they didn't, we wouldn't know who answered what about what. So I don't know, maybe that's a question we can go back and ask Tamara about, if we're able to do that or not.
I feel like too, kind of with the engagement surveys, like we're gonna hear from people who have good things to say. So if we're looking for that feedback about something that's not working the way we need it to work, or the way a customer needs it to work, like I don't know how we've got to figure out how to do that as well.
And if people think it's about their social worker, maybe they don't want to answer the survey. So especially if it's a text they get from their social worker or their case manager. So it's a good point.
All right, so I guess we may want to further explore that. Who is it, Jennifer? Is it someone in your office who's set up the Survey Monkey?
Yeah, it's Tamara Ryan.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else on that, or anything in any of our other focus areas?
Maybe
Right.
for families who respond, this wouldn't apply for service providers, but maybe for families, we could say, although if they were willing to identify themselves, I know it's that we would enter them in a raffle for like a clothing voucher or something for their child, for a shopping opportunity with their child. I mean, I think I could figure out a funding stream for that. You know, like what, once a quarter or something that on the county side, just to get more family responses.
Yeah, that kind of incentive usually helps. I know we were giving out gift cards once for youth who took surveys. All right, any trauma-informed services? Any updates, report outs? Ellen, I know you said you had something.
Would help if I unmuted myself. Yeah, so there's the ACEs adverse childhood experiences trainings are coming up. There's one January 13th and March 15th that are available. I can send the flyer has gone out to the community, but I can send it again to this group for anybody who would like to pass it on or would like staff to take it.
That would be great. I have a MSW intern starting soon, and that would be an ideal training opportunity.
Yeah, that would be good for my staff because we do the ACE with every social history. However, it's just been announced we are moving to a different trauma assessment tool called SEAS, SEAS. I can't remember exactly the acronym or what it stands for at the moment. They've announced it. I just don't know how soon we're going to transition to it. But the ACEs training might still be helpful for them.
Yeah, I'll attach the flyer.
Okay. Anything else? Trauma? Oh, go ahead, Erica.
I would say I just Googled real quick what you said. It looks like it's got a strength-based component to it.
I think
Not
so.
just identifying the
Yeah.
adverse experiences. That was pretty cool. And I think
Yeah.
Virginia Heals, I don't know, Alice, if you remember when I first started, my team was doing those, I forget the name of it now.
Vision 21.
Yes, I think we blocked
Yeah,
it out
that's
because
where
my
it
team
came
had
from.
had a time with it, but that's what it came from. That's some good material. I've followed a lot of that.
Yeah. Is the Trauma Informed Network still meeting? Does anybody know?
Yes, they are still meeting. And I think they were meeting regularly. I think that they're also looking at coming under the umbrella of the coalition. So there's some discussion about that. I don't know that that's
Okay.
happened yet.
Who leads that up? Because I would like for my office to get involved somehow. And I'm not sure who to reach out to.
I usually talk with Sarah Robinson about things like that.
And I'll search my emails, Krista, and see who it is. I used to go to all the meetings, but they're now during FAP. So once I joined FAP, I didn't.
Yeah,
so
that's
so
what I
I
thought.
see them and pass them along, but I don't always pay a lot of attention to who sends them. But I'll look and see. I'll forward what I find.
Okay, thanks. All right. Any other or new business? Nope. So as far as CPMT, the meeting, we will, oh my goodness, why is it slipping my mind now? The co-pays, DCSE, right? We're going to talk to them about that. Talk to, is that the only thing right now?
The
Co-pays.
case conferencing rate.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I was trying to bundle those together for some reason. Okay, case conferencing and co-pays. Am I leaving anything else out? All right. Anything else at all for anyone to say?
I'm warm and have power at Culpeper, so if you guys need anything, we'll figure out how to get you here, but happy to help. Alice, you're the only one bundled up, I think, so.
Yeah, I got power back on late Monday evening,
Mm.
but everybody around me, they're still without.
Yeah. I think most of Culpeper is just about back. So. And I saw your Facebook post, Krista.
My goodness,
Oh boy.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, if there's any,
I'm struggling.
I bet.
I need to just be in the office and stay
Sounds
out
a
of
little
trouble.
safer. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, it's good to see everybody.
Stay safe out there.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.